What's up, everybody? MistrMopar back again with another how-to DIY video. I'm going to show you in this video how to change cylinder 1 spark plug in a Nissan Xterra 4.0 for the VQ40DE for 2005 through 2015. Now, I'm getting a misfire on cylinder 1, and in most cases people will tell you that you have to remove the intake to change that plug. You do not. Now, don't get me wrong, it would be a much easier job to change that plug out with the intake out of the way, but removing the intake is a job in itself and not really necessary. So on this 4.0 liter, cylinder 1 is the passenger side in the front, and it is conveniently located right here, straight down. Now, in order to do this, again, it's a pain in the butt, but it is doable. First thing you're going to do, where I'm getting a misfire and it's an engine light, is I unhook my battery. So once I get it all hooked back up, it will hopefully clear the code. So the first thing is the 10mm bolt on top of the coil. You can see I've got my wrench on top of that bolt. It is directly at that angle right there, and it sits pretty much straight down here. So once you get your bolt loose on top of the coil, you can get these two fingers on it and you can just spin it free with your fingertips. It is a pain, but it is doable. Just like this, it's spinning for me. Once you have that so that it's at the point that it's going to come out, what I do, because I have a tendency to drop bolts and then never find them, so I like to take a magnet, just an extendable magnet, and once I have that to where it's ready to come out and I've got it in my fingertips, I'll reach down in there and grab it with this magnet so I can't drop it. I'm going to do that, and then we'll take back up from there. So I'm going to show you, you can almost see it. I get in there with my flash, so you can see the head of the bolt right there, and again, it is a pain, but you can spin it with your fingers. And then once that is ready to come out, you can get your magnet in there and grab it so you don't drop it and never find it again. So again, I'm going to do that, and then I'll take back up from there on the coil. Another thing I'm going to add, you don't have to do this, but I do because it gives you a little more room to work, is take the cylinder 3 coil off the top, because when you're down in there trying to get the coil off cylinder 1, it just gives you more room. Now, you don't have to unplug. I'm going to focus. You don't have to unplug this. I mean, you can. It would probably make it a little easier because you do have to bend this coil when you pull it out. But again, just gives you more room if you remove the coil off cylinder 3 there. One more little tip. A lot of times the coils themselves will really be seated onto the top of the plug. So what I did, because you really can't get in there and grab it very well, once the cylinder 3 coil is out of the way, you can get a short pry bar underneath the top of coil on cylinder 1 and just pop it off the top of the plug, and that gives you, the freedom to get in there. It's off the plug, and move it out of the way. So I've got it coming up now. Once you get it out of the hole, you really do have to kind of bend it. I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, but you've got to kind of push it towards the front of the vehicle and then bend the coil itself. I'll show you on the cylinder 3 coil. They're flexible. I mean, you don't want to go too much, but they do have some flex to them. You've got to bend it enough just to get it up out of there, and then you can get to the plug, and I'll show that. So there you can see, get my flash, I guess I can't, hold up. Okay, so here's my coil right here. So you're able to push the top of it towards the front of the vehicle, and that allows you to see the plug down in cylinder 1 right there. Now, to get on that plug, so this is essentially the setup you need. An extension with a swivel, another extension, and it is a 5/8 plug socket. I try to only buy the good stuff, so I've got the NGK laser iridium plugs, and for the 4.0, this is your part number. So do this with one hand might be difficult. So what you've got to do, you got to go through the opening in the top of the intake here. Bear with me, I'm trying to do this with one hand. There you go. So I'm down in on the plug with my knuckle. I can get my ratchet on top of that extension, loosen that up. Once you got the plug loose and ready to come out, you can do the same thing you did with your magnet on the bolt. Reach down there with a magnet, grab it, drop the new one in, tighten it up, and we'll do that in a minute. You may also get lucky and the spark plug might actually stay in the socket. So this is a fairly new plug, but you can see it's all dirty and fouled. I'm not exactly sure why. But there you go. That's removing the spark plug from cylinder 1 on a 4.0 Nissan Xterra without taking the intake off. Put it back in. It's just the opposite process. Again, this is not an easy process because it is a pain in the butt where it's located, but it's very doable without removing the intake. You just gotta have a little patience. All in all, I'm 5 minutes into this video explaining it, but you can probably do the whole thing in 15-20 minutes if it goes smoothly, maybe shorter. I've done it a couple times, so I'm getting a little better at it, but I'm gonna put the new one in and show you how to put everything back together. The two probably most difficult things doing cylinder 1 with the intake on top is getting the bolt off the coil, getting the coil out, and then getting the bolt back in the top of the coil. So to get it back in there, you've got to hold it in your fingers like this, get up and drop it in the hole. I'm going to do that, and then we'll start again. Got it all back together. Coil's on, bolts in. So there you go. It is possible to change this spark plug in cylinder 1 on the 4.0 without removing the intake. It is a pain in the butt, but it's an easier job than removing the intake just to change one spark plug. Again, you really only need the 5/8 plug socket, a 10mm wrench, a couple extensions with the knuckle, and you can do it. Hopefully this will help somebody out. I know it saved me a lot of time not having to remove the intake. The most complicated part, I believe I said earlier in the video, is just getting the coil and bolt off the cylinder 1. Get in there with your fingertips. They probably will cramp up your fingers a little bit like mine did, but still easier than removing the intake. So there you go. Hopefully this helps somebody. Thanks for watching.